We are live. Welcome to the LNT Podcast. It's a lifestyle with Robin and I. Today, what are we going to be talking about, Robin?
Well, we are getting to a season where we are enjoying beverages such as alcohol. And I think it's really important if we cover this topic, talking about what it does to us in terms of both, I guess, like functional wise in the body and in the brain and how that interrelates, and then the outcomes from alcohol. Obviously, you and I, we enjoy the odd beverage, so I'd hate to...
Yeah, so it's not going to come. I think we've seen a few people, you know, when they talk about alcohol, they're usually complete non-drinkers, so they bag it down to the days. But we do enjoy a drink or two throughout the year, but usually, you know, getting into the holiday season or what we call the silly season, we usually drink a little bit more, I would say. And I think the majority of, I guess the culture here in New Zealand is that you tend to drink a little bit more over the summer and over, well, our summers when our Christmas is, so over this holiday period.
And I guess the point of this is, particularly for Marvin and myself, is not to say don't drink, and we're not trying to put people off drinking. We just, like we always do, we just want to present facts.
Yep.
And just present what happens.
That's it. Just present what the research is suggesting, and like we said, we drink ourselves, so it's I guess it's good to understand as well, and know what effect alcohol has on our system.
Well, okay, I would like to ask. Okay, from before we go into the research and literature and what that says, I'd like to just ask. So, from your own experiences, Mr. Marvin, So let's just say you have a star function.
Yeah.
A few drinks. What happens to you from the moment you drink to the following day?
At this age, currently at 30 years old, Marvin.
What about if we were to say, well, what's the difference actually? Okay. From now compared to, let's just say 10 years ago.
It's changed a lot, I think, and it's usually, you know, the aftermath has changed a lot.
Yeah.
You know, when you're drinking, taking effect, it's always almost like a good time. You know, we got a serotonin boost, and you're feeling good about yourself. You're more talkative, life of the party kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
And that's the same thing where it was 20 years ago, hopefully not 20 years ago, 10 years ago, or now at 30 years old. But the aftermath and the recovery.
Yep.
For a number of reasons, I think. One of them is age, and the other one is that I'm far less conditioned. Because during my high school days, I used to drink quite a bit more than I do now. And it used to be more regular, more frequently. And the body, just like anything, it goes through adaptation and adapts, and it thinks, this guy's an idiot. He's drinking every week. We need to adapt somehow so that the next day or the following week, he's not as KO'd as he is. You know?
And he can back it up again.
Exactly, right? Yeah. So I think my recovery, when you're young, you just recover a lot quicker. The hangovers are not as terrible, and you're back and running. And sometimes, you know, you'd have those benders where you're back on the alcohol the next day.
Yeah.
So now when I wake up in the morning after a drink or after a night out with some friends and having some beverages, the last thing I can think of is I can't even look at a bottle of liquor or a beer. Yeah, the smell can put me off. The sight of it can put me off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think very similar experiences, you and I would say, in the younger years, high tolerance, could go, you know, a few days, could go 2-3 days in a row and enjoy it.
Yeah.
But for me, I think around the age of sort of 25, mid-20s to 30, saw a huge settling down period. And now, my goodness, even if, let's just say I had a function on a Saturday, and then again the following Saturday, I'm like, I don't think I can back this up. And it could be age, and also I think with experiencing how it feels to be fit, healthy, and having ongoing vitality, and knowing what alcohol does that following day. Because I actually feel lethargy. I feel tired, not really wanting to participate in life.
Yeah.
Just want to chill, and I'm glad that we're going to be talking about the why this actually happens, because I'm sure a lot of people are curious.
Absolutely.
A lot of people experience what we've just discussed now,
Yeah.
and then knowing why it actually happens.
It's interesting. I think
Yeah.
it's partly, do you think partly the feeling of lethargy? I know you do feel it as well, but partly because we've studied and read and researched about this particular topic, that you kind of feel it more, or as soon as that feeling presents itself to you, you're like, that's why, because I had a drink, this, I'm feeling that. These are the side effects of alcohol.
So do you reckon it's like we manifest it more? But when we're younger, we're so
because,
naive.
And ignorance is bliss, right? So now that we've studied it, we know what it can do. It kind of manifests itself a lot more in our systems than it would otherwise. But either way, lethargy is a big thing, and we'll talk about it later as well, especially during day drinking and how productive you can be. And so definitely we'll be digging into all those topics. First and foremost, we talked about personal experience as well, and also culture, because we come from different cultures and backgrounds. And starting up, in your family, how was that drinking culture being, partly Niuean? And did that have some effect? Was that a drinking culture, or?
I would say yes. Particularly, I grew up from the age of 4.5. I was put into sports really young, league and golf, but particularly with the league culture in New Zealand.
Yep.
So you train Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday game day, and then everybody after the game goes and celebrates the victory, or if you lose, you sort of wash it away with drinking, right? So even when I was a kid, it wasn't, obviously I'm not drinking, but the adults are. So you sort of see that exposure from a really, really young age, and then that becomes like the norm.
Yeah.
Even I remember going to touch tournaments as I was growing up, and then after the touch tournament or after the touch game, you drink again. So then my association between sports celebrating with alcohol became, I'd say, quite deep. So then that was instilled. So every sports game, what do? You go and drink. And it wasn't until later on I was like, well, actually, I don't need it. So culture-wise, in terms of the sporting realm, that had a huge influence. And as I got older, more aware, I was able to sort of get rid of it.
That's cool.
Which is really good.
Yeah.
But culture-wise, celebrations is all around food and drinking. What about yourself?
Yeah, I think it's the same. And it's interesting that you mentioned food, because I'm originally from Iraq, and celebrations is a big thing, but alcohol was always paired with food and what we call meze, or like tapas, small plates of food. So you're always drinking and eating at the same time.
Yeah.
It's never, when I first came to New Zealand here, and as I grew up into this culture, drinking sometimes is done solely just, drinking with the boys, or having pre-drinks where it's, sometimes there's food involved, but a lot of the time you're just nicking down alcohol.
Yep.
And there's no food involved, which is interesting to see, to analyze, because it does have an effect, especially eating prior to food, to drinking. That alcohol content is not directly going into your bloodstream, and some of it is actually being absorbed by the food, and at much slower release, so you're not getting as intoxicated as quickly. But over here, I think a lot of the times there's not much food involved, or usually you drink so much, and the end of the night you're so hungry, then you go to McDonald's or something and make bad habits that way.
The old eating is cheating.
Yeah.
I'd like to say, from personal experiences and becoming more mature, that is not the case. I would say for the younger Robins and the younger Marvins that are listening, is play the smarter game now.
Yeah.
Because there is consequences and can end up being long-term changes from having this mindset.
Definitely.
And I think it's very important to change it while you're younger.
Yeah. Make those decisions early. And it's I guess because you don't feel as bad and you don't feel the negative effects of alcohol when you're younger, so it's harder to make those decisions.
Yeah.
When you get older, you start feeling it a lot more, especially the immediate effects, the 24 hours, then, that hangover.
Yeah.
It's feeling horrible, and it often puts you off alcohol a little bit more, as opposed to, I drank, you feel a little bit off for about a couple of hours, then you eat something, you're feeling a lot better.
But even if you're trying to gain a result, right? Like let's just say a sports result or a
Yeah.
weight loss result or
Yeah.
a change in body composition,
Yeah.
alcohol is not going to be a good driver to accomplishing those results.
It never is, there's hardly any benefits of alcohol. There's small things that are arguable in terms of research and in terms
Very
of
small,
anecdotal
though.
and very, very slim. It's very slim pickings,
Yeah.
and it's in between an massive array of issues, problems related to mental health, whether we're talking about stress and anxiety, depression, physical health, whether we're talking about performance.
Yeah.
Weight loss is a huge question. And when we discussed that we were doing a podcast on alcohol, a lot of our clients discussed, what's the relationship between weight loss and alcohol? Is there a type of alcohol I can drink that's better than the other? Is low carb beer good? Is low sugar alcohol? Now, if you go to the liquor store and look at the fridge section, everything's 0%, zero sugar.
Zero.
That
Heaps. Everyone's dominating that market now.
it is. It's a dominatory market because it's associated with, I'm cutting or I'm on a diet, so I'm gonna have low sugar and it doesn't have any calories or something,
Yeah.
But you're missing the point that alcohol itself does have calories, and in fact it has more calories than sugar per gram. Sugar is a carbohydrate which has 4 grams per cal. Alcohol, okay, once it enters, ethanol's the alcohol that humans can ingest, okay, that's the only alcohol that we can drink. Once it enters our system, we'll break it down. It basically converts into acetaldehyde, and then it converts into acetate. And acetate has 7 calories per gram. Okay, so 4 calories per gram for carbohydrates, and acetate's got 7. So a lot more calories. If you're looking at a can of beer, I think it's got about 45 to 50 calories. And often we're not drinking just one can. Wine's got 85 to 90, I think. And a shot of whiskey, for example, can go up to 105, I think 115 calories.
Yep.
And you can imagine whiskey doesn't have much sugar in it. It's just quite, 40 to 50% alcohol. And it's that acetate that's giving you those calories. So it's
giving you the hype, so you can break shapes on the dance floor.
Yeah, it's giving you that, but it's also giving you quite a bit of calories you need to get rid of. And, it's not just, usually when we're out on events and things, it's not just one drink you're having. It does add up eventually. Even if you're having 1 or 2 glasses of wine with dinner, it sounds like it's not much, but it's additional calories. It's not that easy to burn 85 calories. You'd have to go for a decent walk or a decent jog to get rid of that. If you're having 2, you're well over 160 calories.
Yeah.
That's a lot. That's a snack.
But how many people have you worked with? You say to them, look, let's just trial this for a 4-week period.
Yeah.
Drop the alcohol.
Nothing
and then
else.
you associate.
Don't make any
keep
other
everything
dietary
the same.
changes.
And then what happens? Then they start dropping the weight.
Yeah.
But more particularly because we can look at like inflammatory response, water retention as part of dropping weight.
Yeah.
But you can see the body composition change.
Absolutely.
Their stomach gets flatter. There's less, inflammatory response in the stomach.
Yeah.
Their face isn't so puffy. They don't have the big red cheeks.
Exactly.
So for those people that are associated and can, understand what we're saying here is that drop the alcohol, try it for a 4-week period and see how you feel and how you look and see what happens to your body shape.
Absolutely. And that's just one of the things, especially if you're looking at weight loss, it's kind of a double-edged sword. So not only that does alcohol contain calories, and they're empty calories as well. So it's not like, so you're not replenishing your body with any vitamins, any minerals. It doesn't have any protein, any healthy fats. Some alcohol has minimal carbohydrate. So it's literally empty calories. Those calories that you're taking in are doing nothing for your body but bad. It's just literally energy, okay? That's one thing. The other thing is alcohol, which is often not talked about much, is it's amazing at converting testosterone into estrogen. And we know that estrogen, one of its key functions is increase fat storage within the cells. Okay, so that's a double-edged sword because you're thinking, first you're consuming calories, empty calories, and second of all, you're converting all your testosterone, you're converting testosterone quite readily, into estrogen, and you're associating with storing fat into your cells a lot more.
Yeah.
And
But
also
even the drop in testosterone, right? If you're trying to develop and build muscle mass.
And on the other hand, if you're looking at performance, that especially for us males, that's going to be tenfold worse, right? And it also reduces insulin growth factor 1, which is associated with increased skeletal muscle strength and size. Another big issue that we have to deal with, which we'll talk about performance. But in terms of fat loss on its own, it's not just the calories, but it's the estrogen you're creating.
Oh.
Also increases the fat storage in the breast tissue.
Yeah.
So for you men out there, not the best.
Not the best at all.
Not the best.
And there was some stuff I was looking at. So this whole research article looking at all the pathophysiology, right? And I've just got some notes here, but looking while we're talking about like sex drive and hormones.
Yeah.
And contributing to the fat loss stuff is about the detrimental effect, right, on the hormones. And then what was really interesting about that, the follicular stimulating hormone, which is like based on the pituitary gland that's released, that's thought to regulate normal hormonal functioning.
Yeah.
That starts to diminish. And then also in the testes itself, right, a luteinizing hormone that's produced also in the testicles, that releases and increases sperm count as well. So the reason why I want to bring this up is like when you're getting those endocrine system changes within the body, I've personally got friends that find it hard to have children. Yeah. So it gets me thinking about that correlation as well and what's actually happening to guys. So I know it's like going on a bit of a tangent, but I found that really interesting, and knowing that alcohol was that harmful for people.
Yeah.
And then they went to state that if you needed to do a full clearance, you've got to be basically alcohol-free for 6 months to re-regulate the endocrine system, those pathways. Yeah. So then it's basically like the part in the brain, the big hypothalamus, and the little part of the brain, the pituitary gland, they're just not regulating again, and then they're getting a catastrophic effect.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it went on to chronic alcohol exposure, excuse me, which was looking at how you said just 1 or 2 drinks every night was classified as chronic alcohol. So it induces a decrease in testosterone, progesterone, and an increase in stimulating another hormone, which induces hormonal dysregulation, and then that's producing reproducing disorders. It also ages the menstrual cycle, so it becomes irregular. Yeah. You get decreased fertility and failure to produce testosterone and sperm in both men and ovaries in the woman. Yeah. Become dysfunctional.
Yeah, absolutely. And when we're talking about it really does wreak havoc in a number of hormones. So much you've mentioned FSH and LH as well. I've talked about estrogen, testosterone, so many other ones we'll cover later on within this podcast. But it is multifaceted in what it's doing. And also, don't forget, we're talking about guys reducing testosterone count, but an increase in estrogen count for women isn't great either. And it's highly correlated with increased breast cancer, which is, funnily enough, correlated with alcohol drinking. If you look at populations of females, the females who drink more regularly throughout the week have increased risk of breast cancer. And it's not 100% correlated, but it is thought to be that increase in estrogen.
Well, there's an association, right?
There is an association.
Low progesterone.
Absolutely, and it's so that's one of the cancers. There's many different cancers that alcohol can lead to, but the one of the highest is one of the most prevalent is breast cancer, and it's thought to be because of that inclination, increased exposure of the body to the hormone estrogen.
But that's the thing: 1 or 2 drinks, classified as chronic drinking.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because 10 years ago, we wouldn't consider that as chronic drinking.
Yeah, and
it'll be just a few quiets.
Yeah, and it's a few quiets. And if you look at our culture here, the Kiwi culture here in New Zealand, a couple of drinks a night, one to 2 drinks, we have a lot of clients who are on that. And it's classified as a norm, just a way to unwind or relax before you go to sleep. And we'll talk about sleep later.
We'll talk about that one.
And especially if we're talking about weight loss, and if you want to go reach a bit more far-fetched, and the effects of alcohol on sleep on its own and stress, how it increases stress, which we'll talk about later. There is plenty of research to say that if you are not sleeping properly or you're not getting enough sleep, which alcohol does do both of those, as well as if your body's stressing and you're starting to stress eat, you're not sleeping enough, you tend to eat or make worse food decisions the next day, and you're eating unhealthier foods, that's also not going to contribute to your weight loss goals.
Yep.
So it's not just the hormonal things, it's not just the empty calories that you're having from alcohol, but it is the secondary
effects. It's the fast
I guess.
food at the end of the night.
It is the fast food or the next day where you're kind of a bit too sick, you don't feel like eating up until 12 o'clock, and then all of a sudden you get really hungry and you want calorie-dense foods. So that's going to set you off as well. So yeah, we're not telling you to stop drinking completely, but if you're quite serious about, weight loss, one of the smallest things you can do and think about before changing anything else is either reducing the amount of alcohol or trying a cut complete off being off alcohol and see how you feel. It's not just the weight loss. You might feel a lot better in other aspects as well.
Yeah. And you can choose your moments, right? Like I understand people during like this sort of Christmas, New Year's period up it. So if that's your case, at least right in that February, March period, just try to cut it. Like choose the moments when you want to cut it. Reach that weight goal.
Yeah, I mean, let's be realistic now. December, January, to tell people to stop drinking, they'll be closing off this podcast real quick. But enjoy your drinks. But definitely, it's good to be aware, I think, of the research and what the data's suggesting.
Okay, what about going into? Okay, so we know that this is a busy period for a lot of companies.
Yeah.
A lot of people that are under the pump, highly stressing. You're saying, okay, people coming home, they're having maybe a glass of wine to unwind.
Yeah.
So, what's your thoughts? What's your thoughts on people? What would you advise people?
Don't. It's not. Don't do it. I mean, the instant effect of alcohol. Yes. That's why people want to get back to it, right? Because you kind of have this conditioning towards it where it does feel it loosens you up for the time being while you're under the influence. Yes, absolutely. There are hormonal changes that are possibly beneficial, especially with serotonin, because if we look at the neuronal activity of serotonin in your brain after having a drink, and it's within the first 9 minutes, there is a hyperactivity of the neurons related to serotonin and a boost spike in serotonin. Of those of you who don't know what the serotonin hormone does, but it's related to our emotions, specifically the emotion of well-being and feeling good about yourself, and having a boost of that, of course you're going to feel, you're going to feel like you're unwinding, you're relaxing, you're loosening up.
And you're coping.
Of course, it also affects your frontal or prefrontal cortex, and it kind of, it brings down your attention. And it can be, if your attention has been on stressful factors throughout that day or that week, and you're lowering those, that attention towards those stressful factors, you might feel like, it's all good. It's all good. Let's have a drink, and then one drink leads to another. That. Later on, those effects are going to completely reverse, okay? If we're talking about serotonin, there is a spike when you're under the influence, and then there's a plummet, not a plummet back to norm, but well below that. Now, one thing people don't understand, the worst effect is 24 hours after alcohol in terms of that plummet of serotonin. But there is evidence to suggest that serotonin doesn't actually get back. For some people, for a lot of us, it can take up to 10 to 14 days, up to 2 weeks. And it's just not serotonin, it's other hormones as well. 2 weeks where your body struggles to find that normal level of serotonin or get back to
that's your alcohol-induced anxiety, right?
That's the anxiety, and that's the stress that you're feeling, and which is insane. When I was reading and studying, we obviously do a little bit of extra reading and studying, preparing for these podcasts, and I knew it did take a bit more than 24 hours. That's why you see some clients kind of feel down after a big weekend, even if it's a Wednesday. And it's not just serotonin, it's many others which we'll discuss, leading to stress and anxiety. But how crazy is that to think about? Up to 10 to 14 days, 2 weeks, for the serotonin to get back to normal levels.
So then you can imagine your weekly drinker. So they will be spiraling downwards because
you're
they will
trying
never,
to get that peak again, right?
They'll never be able to come back
they're
to
like,
baseline.
Like, damn, I've just dropped the serotonin here. It's
Yep.
below mine. How do I get it back up and get it back up quick? You're either going to do drugs or alcohol, right? Because you can't do it naturally.
This is why it becomes chronic, right?
Yeah.
A chronic state of a downward spiral into, I wouldn't use the word depression or anxiety, but potentially just feeling a new low norm.
Absolutely.
Because the brain is, neuroplasticity, meaning it does change.
Absolutely.
But it can change for the better or it can change for the worse. Yeah. And then because of it's changing for the worse, then obviously the brain is a control center for everything else that happens, right? So then you can't regulate the cortisol, the stress, like output.
Yeah.
And that can't be blunted.
Yeah.
So then the signaling starts to alter. Then you get the long-term changes.
You do get the long-term, absolutely.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about neurodegeneration in a bit as well. But while we're still on that topic of stress and anxiety and maybe even depression, which there is some correlation with alcohol in terms of depression, whether it's worsening the symptoms or bringing them back on specifically, but it can get you into almost like a transient feeling of depression.
Yeah. Well, I've got a personal friend that he is highly aware of the effects of alcohol on his anxiety. So he's fully aware of it because we actually had a discussion about it, and it's quite cool to get that subjective information because we can read all we want.
Yeah.
But until you actually talk to somebody that actually goes through it.
Yeah.
So he can have a few drinks, but the next day is like hyperventilating, can't sleep, feels anxious, really struggles, can't focus on anything, has no coping strategies, and just feels he wants to lay on the couch all day.
It's a full attack, isn't it?
It's huge, but that can be for days to be this bad. But then that starts to affect work and other outgoing commitments as well. So there's a whole array of a cascade of effects, and to come back out of it is hard.
Yeah, maybe not that intense, but I can speak through personal experience that I do feel that almost rush of anxiety, not hyperventilating, but the areas or situations that I might not find stressful.
Yep.
When I'm off alcohol, I might find stressful at that time.
Yep.
And there's plenty of evidence to suggest that. You talked about the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis,
Yep.
which is basically, hypothalamus is an area in your brain, and pituitary glands are tiny glands that sit just below your brain, and the adrenal glands are obviously just below the rib cage. So that relationship, or that axis, as referred to, its main job is balancing what you find stressful or not. Okay, and alcohol targets the HPA axis directly.
Yeah.
Okay, so for example, if your wife told you to go buy some milk, and as you're going, you have a flat tire, and you remember you've got a bunch of paperwork to do. You've got like 3 things. That's what usually, you find stressful. If you're under influence and you're having a hangover, you're going to find that situation 10 times more stressful.
Yep.
As if you were not drinking at all. You'll be like, okay, you'll start to problem solve strategically and try to lay that out.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of it with HPA axis. A lot of it is to do with the hormone cortisol.
Yeah.
And for those of you who don't know, cortisol is mainly linked to stress or feelings of stress and anxiety. So after a night out of drinking, you start releasing a lot more cortisol, which is why the next day you're possibly having those panic attacks and anxiety, especially if you are, you've developed a liking for alcohol, a liking for the bottle. Okay, what a lot of people don't understand. And this is, I don't know why this piece of research and piece of literature, which is very convincing and very, very good piece of research, it shows that even when you're not drinking, if you're a regular drinker, and say you had a drink on Saturday, and you haven't had a drink for 2 weeks, but you are a regular before that, your body is going to naturally secrete more cortisol as opposed to the non-drinker. So it's not the effect of alcohol or the immediate effect of alcohol following 2 to 3 days. You're naturally going to secrete more cortisol, regardless of whether you have a drink or not.
Yeah.
Which another thing was I think mind blowing for me.
Yeah.
It's basically your body telling you to have another drink. Just be like, I can't cope with this, and I know what helps with this.
Yeah. But in addition, right, you've just had a huge, when you're talking about serotonin before, and you have these rapid decreases, right, and you're below par, the body is going to find its natural way to spike you, to at least feel good or have the energy to sustain your life, right? So then what do people go to? Maybe other various of stimulants.
Yeah.
So it's going to have to be one or the other, because it's going to regulate itself.
Absolutely. And that was, I think, phenomenal for me to find out about the cortisol. It's not just when you're drinking, but way after you're drinking, your body's just going to continue to secrete that cortisol. So yeah, it just shows you drop in serotonin, increase in cortisol, and your body's, feeling.
You know what that leads to?
Vulnerable.
Constant tiredness. Constant tiredness.
Yep.
Yep.
Constantly fatiguing.
Yep.
If you're constantly under stress and your mind is just hyperactive, thinking about that, that's going to give you that feeling of fatigue, lethargy, negative mindset towards anything.
Yep.
And everything. So yeah, that's one huge thing.
So then what's the lead into cognition then? So then what's the problem with alcohol and cognition?
Yeah.
Okay, so have you ever had a drink? Okay, let's say you go back to uni. Let's just say on the sad day, it's a get together. Let's say on the Wednesday, you have a presentation that you need to do or a big assignment. Have you ever felt the consequences of drinking and cognition? So I'm not talking about like anxiety and stuff. I'm talking about like the speed of how you can think, retaining information, memory. Have you personally found there's any consequences? And if so, why?
Yeah, and why is the difficult one, because it's I have maybe not directly if I'm doing if I've got something on the next day after a drink, 100%.
Yeah.
Okay. And it's even if it's not having many drinks, I'm not talking about you wake up with a major hangover, of course.
Yeah.
But I'm talking about just having a drink, a couple of drinks, maybe even just one drink, one beer, with dinner, and then going to sleep. I do feel a little bit of brain fog and just not as sharp, or not as quick-witted, if you like.
Yeah.
As I would be without so. But part of it is whether it's related to sleep directly as well, because we know alcohol, we'll get to that sleep because we keep bringing that up, but I want to hold it off and fire it away right at the end. But with drinking, it's because you're affecting it specifically, the whole brain is getting affected, but the prefrontal cortex.
Oh, I just want to add, sorry to interrupt. I just want to add is that Marvin and I, we forgot to mention that alcohol is both water and fat soluble.
Yeah.
So when Marvin's talking about the whole brain's affected, the reason why is that alcohol can go into any receptor in our body. So all tissues are affected. Sorry to interrupt. Yeah,
absolutely. That's actually a really, really good point. So it crosses the blood-brain barrier like it's nothing. Okay,
which is like a vice. It protects the brain. So not many things can penetrate it.
No,
but that's how strong alcohol is.
That's how quickly it can get into it. Yeah, and it really is that quick. And it's from the moment you drink or have the first gulp of alcohol,
the first smooth sip,
and there has been studies done on this, and they time it until when the brain takes effect is 6 minutes. So 6 minutes, that's how quick it crosses the blood-brain barrier. There's nothing stopping it. That's why it is so insanely, it can be quite detrimental, okay? And we talk about neurodegeneration, okay, which is basically degenerating the neurons in your brain and the pathways that brain creates and the communication points and centers. So when we drink alcohol, okay, the ethanol is converted to acetaldehyde, okay, which is classified as poison. It literally is. There's, for lack of a better term, it is poison, okay? There is a substance or a transporter called NAD in our system that converts ethanol to acetaldehyde. That wreaks havoc, okay? That the main job of our bodies is to convert ethanol to acetaldehyde and then straight away to acetate, which is the one that's containing the calories to give us energy, as quick as possible. Okay? If it's done slowly, that it gives time for acetaldehyde to wreak havoc in our brain, in our system, in our
Yeah.
microbiome, and everything. Okay, and that's the problem. That's what's causing all those issues related to the cortisol, to the serotonin, to all the hormones and our whole body.
Well, that's going to lead to your blackout.
And that's going to lead to blackout. Okay, exactly. That's exactly it. And there's been plenty of research looking at the gray and white matter of our brain. Okay, which is basically what our brain constitutes of. Is a gray and white matter. White matter, it's white because of the myelin sheaths, which is a sheet that covers the axon, and it looks white in appearance. And basically, the main job of it is transporting information from one side of the brain to the other. So there's plenty of evidence to suggest that 1 to 2 drinks a day, okay, causes thinning, brain thinning, for lack of a better term. It's literally thinning the brain,
Shrinkage.
shrinking the gray and white matter. So both of them are getting thinner, okay? There has been meta-analysis to show the more you drink is an exponential curve. So the more you drink, if it's 1 to 2 drinks a day, okay, or 12 to 24 drinks a week, okay, that can lead to thinning. But the more you drink, the more thinning you get, okay? So it's just constant, and it goes that way. So if you are reducing the amount of alcohol you're drinking, you're only doing yourself good there, okay? And that's that research is well put out, and there's plenty of papers suggesting that.
That's the thing. If you want a sharper cognition and you want the myelin sheath to regenerate, all those synapses, all those connective tissues to do its job effectively, you have to slow down, or you need to stop. And I think that really, you don't want any form of like early onset of dementia or Alzheimer's, right? You don't want that to occur. So I think it's very important that people take it seriously. If you do find that you are struggling cognitive-wise, or you know that there's a lapse, maybe have a look at the alcohol and maybe see if you're having too much, pull it back again. See what happens after several months. Because the brain, the brain in particular, is very good at regeneration and altering and those paths, reversing.
There's plenty
those
of
synapses increasing.
And they do reverse. Stopping drinking, that you can see reversal happening. A little bit of thickening of the gray and white matter. So it does reverse. It's very slow, but it does happen, and you actually do make improvements that way.
Well, it's better to have a fully functioning brain in a year than to keep on declining or diminishing, right?
Exactly. So very, very good point. And another, you just reminded me of an important question, and a very common question that clients ask is it worse off? They're like, I don't drink, for 2 weeks. But then sometimes you get to a weekend and you're just thrashing your body with alcohol. They say, is that worse or better than having 1 drink a day?
It's like, is it better to get stabbed in the heart or shot?
Yeah, what do you prefer? Now, in terms of cognition, research suggests that actually there is hardly any difference with that. If you're having 1 drink a day, okay, 1 beer a day for whatever, a month, or if you are having just a weekend night out with the boys and you're not drinking at all throughout the week.
Or the gals.
Yeah, or the gals. If the amount of alcohol is the same, the amount of thinning, neurodegeneration, and brain thinning is actually the same. So it doesn't matter if you're thinking like, I don't drink much, but I just have benders every now and then, and I'm just like nicking down 12 packs of beer or Prosecco, 2 bottles of Prosecco, whatever it is. So interesting point there, and a lot of research does suggest that it's not. There is no way that you can pace yourself or think about you can kind of, glide away or maneuver away from the effects of acetaldehyde. It's literally poison, and once it enters your body, its main objective is to kill and damage cells. That's what acetaldehyde does. And there have been some people genetically, naturally, can convert acetaldehyde to acetate a lot quicker. Okay? If you are lucky enough to do that, you are. And it's usually those people you see in parties, and they're drinking like there's no tomorrow. And they're still functioning. They're not slurring as much. And they're doing quite well, And other people, we know some what we call lightweights. or you're having, a
peak.
couple of
peak.
beers and you're done. And those people, a likelihood is that conversion from ethanol, acetaldehyde to acetate is quite slow. So that and for those populations, they almost have to be more careful because
they're going to create more damage.
They are. They really are going to create more damage. So those people getting hammered and lightweights, those people honestly need to be careful. And I think you can do. I'm not 100% sure, but I think you can do some testing to find out if you are one of those people. And you better be careful. Especially.
I think that's the test, though. If you're genetically predisposed to being a lightweight, I think that's on its own is relevant to say probably drink less or very infrequently. Push it out to every quarter if you have to, or save it for special events.
100%.
Because at the end of the day, unless you get a CT scan, see what's actually happening to the brain, you don't know what damage you're actually doing. And long term, you don't want to be, the 50-year-old with an able body and cognitive decline. Long term.
Yeah, it is.
Long-term health gains.
Yeah, and it's, I guess, we are shining a lot of bad news on alcohol today, but it's honestly good to be aware. And this is what happens. This is what literature is suggesting, and this is what happens to the brain. So if you want to stay sharp on top of your game and you're thinking about longevity, especially with brain function, and it's scary, for me especially, it's almost scarier than death, reaching the age of 70 and you're going to start feeling those cognitive decline. And it's not just for you personally, but your family's going to have to deal with that as well.
They got to watch it.
You got to watch it. And that's one of my biggest worries and concerns,
You know what I can hear little people saying to me, but I'm still cognitively sharp. I can still conduct myself well at work. I can still do X, Y, Z. And my thing would be to say, hold up, before how you're talking about the prefrontal cortex, I'll be like, hold on, do you have behavioral changes? And that would be a checklist or a marker that people need to be aware of. Yes, you could be, I guess, smarts wise, no decline there. But as you mentioned before, the prefrontal cortex pathways, if you let's just say somebody cuts in front of you while you're driving. If you get pissed off really, really quickly, because that's basically the center for behavior and a regulator, if you're getting annoyed there, that would be another indication of, okay, slow down, stop, because you are having actual cognitive brain degeneration.
That's a cue for you.
Oh, yes.
That's a cue.
Yes.
I'm glad you mentioned the prefrontal cortex again, because another key job, I guess, for the prefrontal cortex is predicting consequences, especially in social circumstances, right?
Like if you punch that 6'6" guy.
What are the consequences? Or if you mention something that's maybe socially unacceptable or maybe slightly racist or slightly inconsiderate. And you see it sometimes, when you're in a party and stuff and people, once they have a few drinks, there's a lot more fluidity and the lines are blurred a little bit more and you feel like you say some things that can come off a little bit harsher. So that's what happens with the prefrontal cortex. The funny thing is, what research is suggesting is constant drinkers, even when you're not under the influence, that prefrontal cortex has some changes found when you're completely sober. If you're a regular drinker, those lines are going to remain a little bit blurred. And your ability to predict consequences is going to
becomes less, right?
It becomes less
each time.
It's going to be affected. So it's very interesting, right? Because sometimes you can be with your partner or wife and you're completely sober, and sometimes you would say something, or husband, or, anyone, friend, family member. You might say things if you were not a drinker, you would have thought they were probably unacceptable, or you might have placed it differently or worded it differently to deliver that message. So you might sound a lot more blunt, and it can be quite hurtful and detrimental when you're talking about relationships with anyone, even at work. So that's interesting. So it's not just during or while being under the influence, but if you're a regular drinker, you're going to feel those symptoms of the prefrontal cortex and predicting consequences.
And that's when you got to realize you need to stop. And this is for periods of months, because the changes won't be instant. I think what it is, it's all about self-regulation, self-awareness, and then willing to make those changes and announcing to yourself, okay, I can actually relate to some of these things. This isn't good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Make the changes. Make the changes,
I like
team.
it. Yeah.
Make the changes.
Yeah, that's fantastic about cognition and neurodegeneration.
Hey guys, if you want our help in setting up a personalized meal plan or a personalized training program, or both, we can actually do that online for you on our platform and get that done through website, Robin.
Yep. So jump on www.lntonline.co.nz, sign up. We'll have the questionnaire, fill that out. We'll take care of the rest.
Awesome.
Another question frequently asked, moving on now, is to do with alcohol and inflammation. Now, a lot of people say, "Oh, inflammation. What the hell is that?" anything causes inflammation. So,
I guess everything. Breathing.
Yeah.
Breathing poor
yeah,
oxygen.
So why is that bad? Like, there's so many things that can cause inflammation and things like that. But alcohol in particular, especially when we're talking about the acetaldehyde and what that's doing to our system and the inflammation that it's causing, is quite insane. And
But through the whole body, right? Because that's the problem. Like we're talking about before, the fat and water soluble. It's everywhere.
Everywhere.
Brain,
wreaks havoc.
your deltoids.
Yep. Any cell death is going to cause inflammation.
Your tummy.
Yeah. We'll get to that. So especially with microbiome. So the direct, if you're thinking about the direct cause, so when you got, like we mentioned, ethanol, which is alcohol, gets converted into acetaldehyde through NAD, okay? While that reaction is taking place, a substance is created, which is called ROS, or reactive oxygen species. Basically, a free radical, its job is to just secrete pro-inflammatory cytokines. These are fancy words for saying molecules that are going to wreak havoc in your system, okay? Histamines and cytokines, these are going to cause inflammation quite directly at a cellular level, okay, wherever acetaldehyde is going to be. So that reaction happens, you're creating all this inflammation.
Yep.
That's one of the key ones. Often underlooked is the microbiome or in your gut and what's happening there.
Well, because it kills all bacteria, right?
All of it. Microbiome consists of good bacteria and bad bacteria.
So it's not going to keep my good, right? It's not going to be like, you guys are good bacteria. We need you.
Yeah.
And host your tummy.
Yeah.
And we're just going to kill the bad bacteria.
Yeah. No.
I take no, that's not the case.
No, it's poison. Acetaldehyde. It's just like rushing in,
Sweeps everything.
and just machine gun and killing everything it can see. Okay, the good, the bad, and the ugly, all of it. Okay, and one thing that it can cause is what we call transient leaky gut. Okay, what a leaky gut is essentially meaning is that the gut or the lining or the contents of the gut, which is the microbiome consisting of good and very bad bacteria, that can now open up and enter the bloodstream. Okay, and alcohol is really good at doing that. Okay, and we know when there's bad bacteria in the bloodstream, the inflammation that can be caused is insane.
Systemic,
and it's
right?
all over the body. Okay, and it can take such a long time to recover that. Okay, causing inflammation. There's also associated weight gain with it. Your body, in terms of your energy levels, your performance, whether it's your mind, your cognitive performance, as well as your physical performance, it's going to be depleted until everything's restored, which can take well over a week.
Yeah.
Okay. So that transient leaky gut is often not really discussed as well. So, yeah.
So then the ability, would you say that? So let's just say you ingest a meal. Let's just say the following day, and you're like, man, I need to get a nutrient-dense meal. I guess we could say that having the condition, inflammatory response, and the lack of good bacteria, because let's be honest, majority of people, it's already poor in the first place. So you've probably wiped away all of it. So the ability for, let's just say, like a beta and hydrochloric acid to break the food down to make it bioavailable for usage for repair and recovery would also be diminished just from drinking.
You would assume so.
So
absolutely.
it's not only one effect. There's a whole cascade of a downward spiral that will happen.
There is, and it's so multifaceted.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you're right. So I think if you were to have a nutrient dense food after a night out, it is safe to say, and I haven't looked at research of this. It is safe to say that a lot of those nutrients are not going to be absorbed because you just don't have the right bacteria or the right cultures of bacteria in your microbiome to be able to deal with that
Not when you've killed it all.
Yeah, you've just destroyed it, and it does take a little bit of time to cover it, recover all that. Which is, I was reading an interesting article about hangovers, and to get back and recover from hangovers, eating foods that are rich in probiotics, such as kimchi and sauerkraut.
Like sauerkraut, yeah.
Can help.
Your fermented foods would be quite positive.
And doing it's not. I can't imagine it doing a hell of a lot, but it's just going to help the dead.
At least regenerate.
Yeah, and just kind of help out. It's like kind of boxing the hell out of someone one night, and they're falling and they're bleeding all over, and then you come and bring a little plaster, and then you're like, there you go. Please get better.
Yeah, I've chopped my arm off.
Yeah, exactly.
Just give me.
Yeah, here's a plaster to help
Here's
out.
it was more like, here's a piece of sellotape. It's almost like your stomach will be like, stuff you, man. You've destroyed me.
You've absolutely
I'm not going to help you out.
Yeah.
Not at all.
Yeah, it's not gonna kissing it better is not gonna help. But it does suggest you're actually promoting just for that microbiome to give it a bit of a kickstart and get the ball rolling again.
This is another good, I guess, observation.
Yeah.
That Marvin and I would like to discuss with you guys is that if you are feeling bloated, gassy, the chance of you having leaky gut syndrome maybe on the increase, right?
Yeah.
But also you can see some people that are heavy drinkers, particularly this is only my personal observation, more of the beer, and how they have the big red puffy cheeks and the constant bloated stomach.
Yeah.
And I just call them potato people because they have very skinny shoulders and biceps. They need to go to the gym a bit more.
Yeah.
No offense. And they've got little legs, but just very, very round.
Very brown.
Very round.
Bloated.
And you can just tell that's inflammation. It's constant because everything's puffy.
Absolutely. And I wonder if also on top of that, it's that increase in estrogen. So you're storing a lot more fat in because guys tend to store a lot more fat in the belly region. So I do wonder
the breast tissue.
And the breast tissue as well. Yep. Estrogen is very, very famous for that. So I just wonder if it is including. So you got inflammation, and on top of that, you got a nice little cover of fat.
It's the effect, man.
Yeah, it is. There is a specific look about them, isn't
yeah.
Isn't
Oh,
there?
yes.
There is.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And once again, we're not saying don't drink. We're just pointing out.
Yeah.
Pointing out different facts. Don't be chronic.
Facts.
Actually, my point would be just don't be chronic. Try to ease off on the chronic drinking.
Yeah, because like we mentioned, Robin and I do enjoy a drink or two, and it is social, specific social events and things like that. We do enjoy it, and for that moment in time, and things are under complete control, especially at the age that we are in. It is very, very seldom we have.
We're not young bucks.
Yeah, the hangovers tell me otherwise.
I'm just going to quickly just finishing off. There was a cool article.
Yeah.
So I just got a few notes here. I was just talking about the production of pro-inflammatory cytokines, which you already discussed before.
Yeah.
So that actually increases tumor necrosis factor alpha. So TNF alpha symbol, right?
Yeah.
But what was really interesting, it promotes insulin resistance and is associated with obesity and induced type 2 diabetes, which we can see and understand why.
Yeah.
But for people that feel like, let's just say you get a cut on the bottom of your leg and it's just not healing the same. This is where you've got to be careful about how much you're drinking as well if you are experiencing that and you are a drinker, because then you're actually having peripheral vascular problems. I'm going a bit of a tangent here, but these are something to be really, really mindful for. And if you are finding it hard to control your blood sugar levels, if you are self-testing, or that type 2 diabetes is throughout the family, like if you've got a family medical history of it, then it's also really important to decrease the inflammatory response in the body because the effects that it has on obesity, type 2 diabetes.
And insulin, once again, another
becoming
hormone.
insulin resistant. Yeah.
Every single, there's so many different hormones that are affected, and there is correlation with diabetes, type 2 diabetes, and drinking alcohol, which is such a good point.
Changes, right?
Yeah, such a good point. And the inflammation that you're causing everywhere in the body, including the pancreas.
Yeah.
So, but it's just bad news all over.
Yeah.
We've got a Christmas function coming up now, and we're planning on having a few.
Well, Yes, and we will be. I won't be lying. But what we will, okay, I'm just gonna quickly say is that over the years, it's taken me a very long time. Drinking water in between drinks helps. However, it will not stop the damage.
Yeah.
So after this period of Christmas and New Year's, for me, I know I need to stay off drinking for a 3-month period.
Yeah.
And that is non-negotiable for me, because I know what it's like being 7, 8, 9 months without drinking compared to what I'm currently putting my body through. I've got a comparison.
Yeah.
So, but I choose this at the moment, like enjoy, socialize, have a few drinks. That's fine. I know the consequences. However, I will try to do a full reverse cycle, and I do it every year. It's like, okay, Robin, you have to stop. It's the only way to replenish, feel good again.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And since we have experienced how good it feels being without alcohol, to reverse and come out of that is actually not very difficult for us, because we know the benefits and we reap the rewards because we've lived that lifestyle and we know how great it is, right? But for those of you who haven't experienced it, I do definitely, maybe after the Christmas period, to give it a go and try living off alcohol for a month or however.
Challenge yourself, right?
Yeah, challenge yourself.
Challenge yourself.
You might get some withdrawals. You might get that cortisol, increased cortisol for a short period of time. But then trust me, you're going to start feeling good, really good about yourself, as well as you're going to feel sharper.
Yep.
You're going to feel physically able to perform a lot better.
And the sleep will improve.
Sleep. Yeah.
But the sleep will improve, right?
It will improve.
We know that from experiences, what happens is that, the body, for me, the body automatically overheats, right? Why? We just spoke about it. My whole body is bloody inflamed. And we know that we need to go get our body down in terms of core temperature so the body can prepare itself to actually fall asleep. And alcohol doesn't allow you to go through the 4 phases of your sleep cycle, right?
Absolutely.
So the first 3 phases is non-rapid eye movement in terms of sleep.
Or REM sleep.
But then it doesn't allow you to go into REM sleep. So you never go into a deep sleep. So it's very, very superficial, and you're not well rested, and it's fragmented.
It's fragmented, and it's actually often been coined pseudo sleep.
Yes.
Or a phase of sedation. It's not actually sleep. How often, man, with your clients? Yeah, with your clients, how often do they tell you, "Oh no, I just like to have a few before bed. It helps me sleep easier, or helps me get to bed, or sleep quicker." How often does that happen? Even from family members, they say, "Oh, you don't know what you're talking about. Yeah, just I like to have a glass of wine. It helps me relax. A nightcap.
Yeah.
And gets me to bed earlier." But no, it sedates you, okay? Because once the prefrontal cortex is, the effect of acetaldehyde on the prefrontal cortex is sedation and lethargy, okay? So it's going to make you feel sedated. It's not going to help you sleep. 100%. This has been proven time and time again.
Well, not when your cortisol is going to elevate anyway.
Yeah, and plus, specifically, we talked about different phases of sleep, specifically REM sleep. I mean, getting into that deep sleep phase, you just simply do not get on it, okay?
Yep.
And a lot of people think they actually go through periods of waking and sleeping, even if you're not aware of that during the sleeping stage, or when you're drunk or under the influence. But that does happen.
Yep.
Okay. And there is no way someone can tell me that they sleep better with alcohol. They simply do not, and it will affect your sleep. And this is partly why the hangover is tenfold worse.
Well, for everyone out there, I'd like to say Matthew Walker.
Yeah.
Just have a look at his stuff as well. Absolutely fantastic. And
and he looks at so much.
It.
Yeah, and it's not just him, but he brings up this research to the surface and about sleep and alcohol and the relationship between that. So, don't think that because you're feeling sedated and calmed down that you're going to sleep better. It's actually the opposite, and it doesn't take much. It's not about getting hammered. It's just having even one glass of wine or a bottle of beer just before bed. Yeah, that's going to affect you 100%.
So this is where, this can be a common theme, right? The 1 or 2 glasses of wine.
Yeah.
And then what happens the next day? They crawl to the kitchen to get a coffee.
Yeah.
Because they need some form of stimulant to function during the day. Now, people, if you are having to find a stimulant just to function, okay, so some of us like coffee for the taste. okay? But some people actually need it to get up and go in the morning. So if you're doing that, can you be honest with yourself and say, have you got into REM sleep? No, because the whole point of REM sleep is for regeneration of the body and the mind. It's your reset, and that runs in different waves and cycles.
Absolutely.
So if you're not restoring your energy systems, and you can tell because you're reliant on the coffee, you're not getting into REM. So if you're telling me, no, it helps with me sleep, but yet I'm snorting bloody coffee up both nostrils, no. Stop lying to yourself.
Stop, slap your face, wake up. You're not dreaming anymore.
If you're waking up and having pre-workout just to be able to drive to work, you're not sleeping.
You're not sleeping. No.
But in all seriousness, you're not having restorative sleep.
You're not. I like that.
Yeah.
Restorative. And with REM sleep, of course, it affects the frontal cortex and affects the areas of your brain that related to memory. Specifically, it does target those.
Yep.
And it also.
Well, you can't go from your short-term to long-term memory stores like.
You cannot, which is often why you wake up and you don't have a perfect recollection of. So it's so bad to study and then drink and go to sleep. That's such a bad thing because it's affecting your memory. And studies have been shown that and you can't recollect what you actually studied. And it's not about getting hammered. Just having a few drinks after study. You can't recollect some of the stuff you studied from the night before. Executive functions is another thing that goes down and reduces. So,
like you're saying before, the acetaldehyde being such a poison.
Yeah.
Because that's going straight into the hippocampus, and that's basically your memory stores, right? So being able to cross it and store it for long term. So that's just getting hit every night.
It is. So yeah, it's funny. Like it's what's better, night drinking or day drinking, and both of them have such big negative. Because if you're drinking during the day, hopefully the effect of alcohol fades away during the night, where you can get a good night's sleep. But
that's 7 to 9 hours.
Exactly. That's going to take a long time, maybe even more.
So you're telling, should I start drinking at 7 a.m.?
7 a.m. I think you're better off. But the thing is,
and finish at 12? Imagine that. Imagine getting on the hot sauce at 7 a.m., training people. We're just going to load up 200 kgs, 20 reps.
Because I want to sleep better at night.
But Marvin, this is my first training session ever.
But then again, drinking during the day, and we're talking about the feelings of lethargy and sedation.
Yeah.
So your productivity is going to just plummet down. That go-getter attitude about you, where you want to, go and achieve and talk, meet people, and achieve goals and stuff like that. That's going to be diminished. Yeah. So there is no plus about it, Yeah. So you got to pick your battles, and when you want to drink, but really you don't want to drink at all. You want to hold off it.
And also, a lot of people that Marv and I work with, they've spoken about sleep apnea. And this is like, we've had family of people that we're working with, come in to talk to us and ask them, about sleep apnea. They're on breathing devices, right?
Yeah.
At night. And then also alcohol. So sleep apnea, is when you get altered breathing patterns during the night, where you can get shorter breath where it actually wakes you up.
Yep.
Which also leads to a fragmented sleep. But alcohol increases the chances for that night period of sleep apnea by 25%.
Wow, 25%.
So not only are you not getting into REM, you're staying very superficial in your sleep-wake cycles, but you're also the shortness of breath that's waking you up. And some people can have like sleep apnea, the shortness of breath, up to 600 times per night. So you're waking up intermittently 600 times.
600 times.
Yeah, because they're looking into it every few seconds. Like I think it's like every 30-second block, you're sort of waking up. Now, we wouldn't feel it.
No.
But you're probably like in your sleep phases, you're probably only at like round 2. Like if we had to say, REM sleep's done before. Yeah. Very, very superficial.
Yeah.
So that's another good reason. If you already have breathing difficulty, let's say cardiovascular-wise, you're not very fit.
Yeah.
Even on that, I'd say probably decrease the drinking to help get a better night's sleep.
100%.
Well.
If we're talking about performance, absolutely. There's no questions asked. And how many times for me personally, I'll go on a night out, it's a party, whatever, there's drinks involved, and I have a few drinks. I'll go home and I've got nothing to do the next day. So I'm like, oh, cool, I can sleep in and recover. I'll drink a lot of water, blah, 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 do all the stuff to try to prevent a hangover. I'll sleep up to 10 hours and wake up knackered. It's just like, that's enough proof to know that I am getting no REM or deep sleep.
Oh my goodness, yeah.
You know? And you just don't feel sharp. You feel like you need to go to bed for some reason. Again, you just had 10 hours on the bed. So, yeah.
You had 10 hours of sedation.
That's it, 10 hours of pseudo sleep. I think that's what I had. Yeah. And it's insane. I think it's enough proof for me to know that you're not actually getting into deep sleep. And you get to bed very quickly.
Alcohol is a general anesthetic.
It really is, isn't it? It is.
That's all it is. It just
sedation.
shuts down the brain waves, but that's about it.
That's it.
Yeah.
That is it. You briefly touched upon performance and physical performance. And I think everything basically we spoke about today, whether it's sleep, whether it's inflammation, whether it's the fact you're having empty calories, so you're not filling your body up with vitamins and minerals and
what the body thrives on, right?
The correct balance of macronutrients. You're just giving empty calories.
Yep.
The reduced testosterone, reduced insulin growth factor 1, IGF-1, which is going to limit your performance, your strength, your skeletal muscle gain in size and development of strength. Increased cortisol and stress, going to affect your physical performance, of course. Also your mental state. If you're in a playing basketball, rugby match, and you're down, and you need to really dig deep, the first thought in your mind will be a negative one.
Yep.
Believe me. If you're flooding your system with cortisol, so it's just having that determination in terms of when you're looking at mental and mindset. Alcohol's definitely going to affect that as well. And the other thing is hangover. And one of the myths actually I looked at, a lot of people say, it just helps me to go to the gym during a hangover so I can sweat out alcohol. First of all, it's impossible to sweat out alcohol. It just does not get sweat out. The possible reasons why you might feel better is one of two, okay? One of them is you're secreting endorphins and you actually feel a little bit better about yourself and not just feel so guilty that you've absolutely destroyed your body the night before. Two, this is not strong research, but it is very, very subtle, is that when you're training or when you're exercising, epinephrine is secreted into your system. There is some evidence to suggest that epinephrine in your system speeds up the metabolism of alcohol, so your body can get rid of it quicker. They looked at studies with cold showers, which is it's an old tale, but it could actually work. A cold shower could work for that reason, because when you're exposing yourself to getting cold exposure, you're secreting epinephrine. It can go up quite drastically, up to four times. That can speed up the metabolism of alcohol, and you could actually feel a little bit better. Okay. Yep. Again, you might want to be careful with the cold showers because alcohol makes you hypothermic. So it makes you feel colder a lot quicker, and it makes you a bit more vulnerable to cold exposure. But doing it in the shower, I don't think the temperatures are going to get cold enough to worry you.
Yeah, just don't go swimming in a bloody ice cold
or jumping in an ice cold lake.
Or a pool.
Yeah, don't do that. There is actually a slight risk of a heart attack doing that. But especially being hypothermic with alcohol. Yeah. But a short cold shower, increasing the epinephrine levels in terms of the hangover is a good idea, and exercise is likely to make you feel like that. Sweating out alcohol is impossible.
No, I don't think
alcohol is processed in the liver. It cannot get to the sweat glands.
In addition, because of alcohol being a vasodilator, the following day we actually get vasoconstriction.
Yeah.
So that's exactly what leads to like your headaches or feeling a little bit stiff.
Yeah.
But lack of nutrients, right? So it's all interrelated. So
it's that banging headache.
Yeah,
it's the vasoconstriction.
Maybe the exercise actually helps with that vasodilation again. But then I'd say to somebody, drink a ton of water and get a whole lot of nutrients in around the training if that makes you feel better.
Try to reset that. Absolutely, yeah. And that's the next day. The other myth is a lot of the times, and even when I was younger, I did it to a lot of my mates when they were just absolutely hammered, started vomiting, things like that during the night, and then they're like, and then people say, eat.
Well, you're training them in the night.
No, not training, going out with them.
Oh shit!
This is when I was. This is not now. This is back in my student
all I
days.
heard was like, I do that to my mates while they're vomiting. I'm like, you training them? While they're
No.
And I was like, oh.
No. It's in terms of how often do you hear like, oh, get some food in you.
Yep.
You'll feel better. That's a myth. You don't feel better with food. After
Not at the
alcohol.
end of the night.
You're
yeah.
intoxicated. You remember it's water, fat soluble. Alcohol's gone in, done its job. Putting food into the stomach, there's no chance of it overlapping the alcohol and stopping things. Having food beforehand, so it absorbs the alcohol and the release is a lot slower.
Yep.
Yes, that's possible, and that can happen. Having food after when you're vomiting and intoxicated is not going to help you at all. And in fact, it might make you want to vomit again.
Too late.
Yeah.
You've done the damage.
Yeah, you've done the damage. It's gone into your system. So that's not done. So yeah, having a drink can help dilute a little bit from the bloodstream because you can get water into your bloodstream.
All needs to be done at the start, hey?
Yeah, absolutely.
Prepare yourself for a good night.
Prepare yourself, yeah.
Yep.
It's not a good idea to be drinking that much anyway. But having that food, soaking up with electrolytes, really good because alcohol is a diuretic, so you're actually getting quite dehydrated, and it's another reason why you're feeling quite flat the next day. So make sure you fill up on electrolyte-rich food rich in potassium, magnesium, a little bit of sodium in your system, along with water. That's going to help you quite a bit in terms of hangovers. As long cold shower, we've looked at a little bit of evidence, and we talked about fermented foods and the benefits of trying to recover the damage you've done on the microbiome.
But we know it's got to be rest.
Yeah, it's got to be rest.
I have an interesting fact for you here, Marvoni.
Go on.
So, okay, so they were looking at, so this is actually from 1987, this research. And please comment, let us know if this is still relevant or if people know of new research.
A lot of people are bagging old research, okay? There are some old research that's way far more relevant than the new stuff that we're seeing out now, okay? You can't, if there's research about splitting the atom back to Rutherford, back in whenever that was, you're not going to be like, no, scratch that, don't worry. You're not going to be like, the boiling point of water is 100. That was an old research. We need
irrelevant now.
That's irrelevant. No, so some of the research, if it's structured quite well, and if it's a solid, resolute research, definitely it's good piece of evidence to look at.
So a little bit older.
Yeah.
Not as quite as old as myself, but that's fine. So they just looked into acute exposure. So once again, acute, and Marvin and I have already covered this, basically 1 to 2 drinks most nights, or if you're doing weekly, a lot of drinks, right? So this is and it was men, not females.
Yeah.
So not sure if it's relevant for females in this case, but looking at 1.5 grams of ethanol per kg, right? Yeah. Reduce the nightly peak of growth hormone secretion. So for men that's trying to build muscle mass and develop a big physique, obviously if you're going to go over this limit, it's going to have detrimental effect at all.
Wow.
So this study showed that approximately, so in a standard drink, there's approximately 14 grams of ethanol. So this is in one standard drink, right? So I thought, out of curiosity, for myself at 85 kegs, that's during season, so it might be a little bit more now, but 85 kgs, if I would consume 9 standard drinks, so 9 standard beers, or 9 standard glass of wine.
What's an average, how many grams of ethanol? 15?
14. 14 grams, right? So if I were to have 9...
Yeah, so well above.
My ability to generate or produce growth hormone pretty much gone, because growth hormone is released majority at night.
Yeah.
Come on, man.
Yeah, so counterintuitive.
So you can't grow.
Yeah. Or at least you're definitely not helping at all. No, not making.
And that's not many. That's not many. So at least
in our culture, in Western culture, what we're living in now, it's not a lot, especially if it's a night out. You're having a drink here and there, and things go up. You play a game of beer pong, you've down 9 already. So
yeah, it's well, how many is it? 7.5 and a bottle of wine?
Yeah, I'm not too sure.
I know some people that will go for a business meeting and have a glass, have a full bottle of wine. Yeah. But we're talking like this is like several times a week. So if you're trying to like at least grow and develop muscle mass, which we know that has a whole lot of positive effects, right?
Yeah.
you're actually decreasing, like all the hard work you do in a gym.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just thought that was quite fascinating.
That's incredible.
1.5 grams per kg
Yeah.
decreases.
And if you're going over that, you're being detrimental.
Your secretion, your peak secretion of growth hormone is diminished.
Yeah. Incredible. 1.5, which is not a lot. It's not a
No,
lot
I
at all.
didn't think so. So people, calculate it for yourself.
Yeah. 1.5.
Just see what your levels would be.
Yeah. But that's incredible. That's incredible. Have you got any good news about alcohol?
I would say for maybe very short term, one-off. I don't know if you're going on for the single people.
Yeah.
If you're going on a date, maybe have a glass just to sort of loosen up and just to start a conversation.
For that initial, yeah.
Maybe, but I would say for the long-term effects, no.
Yeah, it's a difficult one. It's like you mentioned, for specific social factors. If you are an introvert and you're just trying to get your foot through the door, or if you're in a corporate sort of job and it involves, your work colleagues for the first time, they say, "Oh, come out with us, come and hang out." And it's probably a good time to bond and make some connections. But everything inside you is, you're getting a little bit anxious, or you're getting a little bit like, I can't do this. And going there, seeing everyone having a drink in that social environment. And if you're quite an introvert and you can't be confident enough to say, "No, I'm not having a drink. I'm watching what I'm doing, this, that." Maybe in that scenario, loosening up a little bit and building those bonds can be...
It can help.
It can help.
It can facilitate, but it shouldn't be a pillar you fall back onto.
Definitely not.
To constantly
that's why if you feel good about it, you might have the tendency to want to do it again and again, and then becomes a huge downward spiral, and then becomes a big issue. But I'm reading this. I was reading while studying about alcohol and everything. I'm reading Phil Knight's book as well, The Shoe Dog.
It's so good.
Okay, and
for everyone that hasn't read it.
Read it. It's a fantastic book, especially if you're thinking about wanting to grow a business or wanting to grow your own business. It's fantastic to see the challenges you come across. But interesting thing is, Phil Knight, very into his running, into his exercise, loved running. And during his initial stages of building Nike, before it even was called Nike, he was doing a side job with a bunch of... acccountants, okay? And one of the accountants there, Hayes, his name was, very, very overweight, out of shape, loved to drink, right? And Phil Knight, I think from memory, described him as almost a poet when it comes to numbers. He just knew everything. What makes a business run? What makes a business successful? What makes a business go under, okay? And he's a chartered accountant. And he wanted to extract as much knowledge from him. Phil Knight, not much of a drinker, didn't enjoy it. But Hayes loved to drink, fat, didn't train at all. Couldn't make that sort of connection. Phil Knight almost forced himself to go out and get on the piss with this guy. And it was on a weekly period, week in, week out, going and getting hammered with this guy. But all he was... he's asking him all these questions about business, about what makes a successful business tick.
Yeah.
This and that. And it's a way that he kind of had to come out of his zone, drink for the sake of gaining all this knowledge that was very, very useful for him, you'd imagine, in the future of his business. And when I was thinking of possible positive effects of alcohol, in terms of that social things, because if he wasn't drinking, they had nothing in common in terms of running, which Phil Knight enjoyed. They couldn't have connected in that way, and they couldn't have really he couldn't have gathered that information that is quite crucial for him. So as long as you don't make a habit out of it, and you can tick and make connections and networks that are going to be positive for your business or in terms of whatever you measure success with, or maybe there's that pretty girl or guy you're finally trying to get to, trying to make that connection, and you're a little bit timid or introverted, it's going to be difficult. As long as you don't make a habit out of it, maybe that's one possible slight thing that's going to tip you over the edge and then get the ball rolling.
Yep.
You're reading that book. I was like, maybe that's if I'm really scraping here. But I thought I'd bring up that story.
Yep.
But
no, I fully agree. It serves its purpose when it can be put into context.
Yeah, absolutely. The other thing, another question people ask is wine, red wine, containing resveratrol, which is resveratrol is found in berries as well and grapes. That is quite a rich antioxidant. Okay, and people say, oh, wine's really good. It's an antioxidant. Great. And good for the heart. The amount of wine you'd have to drink to get adequate amounts of...
Hold on. Don't put ideas into people's head. Because are you trying to make this a challenge? Holy hecka.
To get adequate amounts of resveratrol, you'd have to drink a ridiculous amount that all the negative side effects of alcohol are going to way overlap that possible increase in resveratrol in your system that you can get from dried fruit. Okay, so that is a myth, guys. It's bullshit. Okay, so a lot of people saying, well, that was a question we got on Instagram: is red wine good for your health?
Anything with alcohol is okay. It's just a blank statement.
Yeah.
Anything with any form of alcohol is just not going to be good for human consumption.
Absolutely.
Yeah. If it's got ethanol, no.
Yeah. We studied, I remember in my time in university, I can't remember if it was in my health sciences or physiotherapy degree, but there was a correlation, some meta-analyses that looked at, heart disease, okay, and alcohol. And there were some meta-analyses suggesting that there is a possible invert relationship with, having moderate amounts, low to moderate amounts of alcohol are associated with reduced risk of heart disease. There is newer, I guess, meta-analyses to suggest that this needs to be investigated a little bit more carefully and looked at a little bit, with greater detail to make sure before we recommend anything to people, we need to be sure about such research. And don't forget, if it is even a slight positive effect on heart disease, everything else we've discussed today.
So you have a nice, healthy heart and with Alzheimer's.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. And one of the possibilities it talked about is because alcohol is a slight blood thinner, and the inhibition of platelet reactivity could be related with reduced clotting, which reduces heart attacks, blah, blah, blah. It's quite far-fetched. But it's not enough for people to think, and a few people are starting to talk about this, oh, no, I drink, it's good for my heart, blah, blah, blah. No.
But then the fish and chips that you're having and the fatty food that you're having.
And then you look at hypertension, which is a contraindication for heart disease. And alcohol causes hypertension, So, no.
Not convincing.
Not convincing. There is meta-analysis done on this, but also there's newer meta-analyses that I've been looking at that have been suggesting that we need to tread with caution, especially with that particular topic.
Yeah. Fantastic.
Yeah. Awesome. Anything else to cap off?
No, I think we've covered the bases. And obviously, if there's any questions, people, please just reach out. This is how we get most of our material, right? Is people just ask us questions, so we go and research and look and talk to specialists. So if you guys have anything, just please just let us know.
Yeah, let us know whether it's through social media or reach out to us and come and have a drink with us at the pub, and we'll discuss the negative side effects of alcohol.
No, but in all seriousness, choose your alcohol consumption wisely. Don't become dependent on it.
Yeah.
And enjoy it when you do socialize with family and friends and you are drinking.
Yeah, and just be aware. Be aware.
Yep.
Awesome, my man. Take it easy, and we'll be back with you.
See you later, everyone.
See.